At Thanksgiving dinner, my sister stood up and announced, "We voted and you're not family anymore." Everyone cheered. I laughed softly and said, "Then I guess you won't need this." I placed a folder on the table. The moment she opened it, she started screaming. She said it so casually, like she was announcing the turkey was overcooked or the mashed potatoes were cold. There was a fork halfway to my mouth, gravy dripping back onto the plate. I remember because it hit the porcelain and made this tiny clink that sounded too loud in the silence that followed. My father didn't look up. My mother didn't breathe. And my brother just smirked into his wine glass like this was the moment he'd been waiting for. It took a few seconds for my brain to catch up with what she'd said. We voted. Like this was some kind of family board meeting. Like my existence had been put to a vote. I laughed. A small, stupid, nervous laugh. Okay, very funny. But no one laughed with me. My sister Amanda just crossed her arms and said, "We're serious. You don't belong here anymore." The knife in my hand suddenly felt heavy. The smell of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and wine made my stomach twist. I looked around the table and saw it. All of them looking at me, not angry exactly, but done, detached. Like I was some distant cousin who'd wandered into the wrong house. For a second, I wondered if I'd misheard her. Maybe it was a bad joke. Maybe this was one of those weird family interventions where someone tries to be dramatic before hugging it out. But then my mother finally spoke. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. "Let's not make a scene," she said, as if I was the one ruining Thanksgiving. The room blurred for a moment. The clatter of dishes, the smell of butter and stuffing. It all felt far away, like I was underwater. Amanda took a sip of wine and said, "It's not just us, you know. Grandma, Aunt Lisa, even Mom agrees. You've made things impossible. Every time you show up, it's drama. It's complaining. It's guilt. We're done feeling guilty for being happy." I wanted to speak, but my mouth refused to open. I kept hearing her words in loops. "We voted. We're done." My brother Dylan leaned back in his chair. "You always think you're the victim, man," he said. "But we're the ones who have to clean up your messes." Mess. I wanted to ask which mess. The one where I lent him $10,000 for his failed business? Or the one where I stayed up all night when Amanda's husband kicked her out and she needed a place to crash? But no one would have cared about that version of the story. They'd already decided the ending before I even opened my mouth. I looked at my father, hoping, stupidly, that he'd say something. That he'd at least try to stop them. He didn't. He just cut another piece of turkey and said, "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be." That was it. The man who taught me that family sticks together when the world falls apart couldn't even meet my eyes. I stood up slowly, the chair scraping against the floor like a scream in the quiet. "So that's it?" I asked. "After everything, you're just done?" Amanda shrugged. "You chose this." I blinked. "I chose what?" She tilted her head. "You always make yourself the outsider. You isolate, you blame, you never move on. We're just matching your energy, matching my energy." The words burned. I looked around one last time, memorizing the faces I'd grown up seeing every Sunday. The tablecloth was the same one Mom used every Thanksgiving. The china set, Grandma's favorite, was chipped at the edges from years of use. Everything looked the same. Except nothing was. I wanted to shout. I wanted to throw the food, flip the table, demand explanations that would never come. But instead I just nodded. Because if there's one thing I've learned about family, it's that when they've decided you're the problem, nothing you say can change the verdict. I walked out without a word. No one followed. Behind me, someone started carving the pie, and as I stepped into the cold November air, the sound of laughter drifted out from the dining room window. Soft, familiar, cruel. I didn't cry. Not then. That would come later, because that night, when I finally found the courage to open my phone and scroll through my messages, I realized something I wasn't ready for. This had been planned for weeks. You think betrayal hurts when it's sudden? Try finding out it was scheduled. The truth is, this didn't start at Thanksgiving. It started years before, slowly, quietly, like a crack that forms in the corner of a wall. You don't see it at first, but one day the whole thing's ready to collapse. I used to be close with my family. Not perfect, but close. We had Sunday dinners, Christmas movies, long phone calls that turned into late-night advice sessions. I was the listener, the fixer, the one they called when something went wrong. When Amanda's husband left, I was the one who picked her up at 2 a.m., held her while she sobbed, and paid her rent until she got back on her feet. When Dylan's startup crashed, I emptied my savings to help him cover payroll. When Mom had her surgery, I took unpaid leave from work to stay by her side. That was me. Steady, dependable, always available. The one they could count on. Until the day I needed someone. It was 3 years ago when my world cracked open. My fiancé left. I lost my job. I fell into a depression I couldn't fake my way out of. I tried to keep it quiet, but silence has a sound, and my family heard it. At first they called. They asked if I was doing better. Then they started saying things like, "You need to move on," or, "Other people have it worse." By the time I finally reached out for help, the warmth was gone. Conversations turned clinical. My sister once said, "You're exhausting to be around." I told myself she didn't mean it. That people say cruel things when they don't understand pain. But the distance kept growing. I'd show up at family dinners and they'd already be talking about vacations I wasn't invited to, group chats I wasn't in, inside jokes I didn't recognize. I used to think family rejection was loud, screaming, slammed doors, maybe a fight in the driveway. But no, it's quiet. It's unanswered texts. It's subtle sighs when you enter the room. It's realizing your absence causes less tension than your presence. The last straw came last spring. Dad called and asked me to co-sign another loan for Dylan's new business venture. I said no, politely, calmly. He didn't argue, but his silence said enough. A week later, Amanda called. "You've really changed," she said. "You're not as generous as you used to be." "Generous?" I asked. "I've spent my whole adult life cleaning up your messes," she sighed. "And you used to do it without keeping score. That's what made you part of the family." That sentence hit me like a punch. Part of the family, as if love was a transaction and I'd missed a payment. That's when I stopped going to dinners. I figured space might help. It didn't. They filled the silence with stories about how I was bitter, negative, and toxic. And since no one ever calls to fact-check gossip, those stories grew until they became truth. When Mom called to invite me to Thanksgiving, her voice was overly sweet, too measured. "Let's make it a nice, calm holiday this year," she said. I wanted to believe her. I even baked a pie. But sitting there that night, realizing they'd voted me out of my own family, I finally understood what that call had really been. A setup, a stage, a public performance of unity for everyone but me. After I left, I scrolled through my phone to distract myself. That's when I noticed the group chat icon, Family Core, had been replaced by a new one I wasn't in. Curious, I searched social media, and there it was. A post from Amanda 3 days before Thanksgiving. "Can't wait for this year's dinner. Time for some long overdue truth bombs." 15 likes, 5 laughing emojis. Even Mom's. That's how betrayal really looks in the modern age. Not daggers, but digital applause. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. I didn't know what hurt worse, the public humiliation or realizing they'd all rehearsed it together. That night I wrote one text to the group. "Don't worry, you'll never have to vote again." Then I turned off my phone and sat in the dark, wondering how a family could cut someone out like cancer and still sleep peacefully, but peace doesn't come easy when guilt starts eating through the walls you built. And I wasn't the only one losing sleep. A week after Thanksgiving, I got a call from an unknown number. When I picked up, it was Mom. Her voice was tight, like she'd been crying but didn't want me to know. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" "You can't keep ignoring the family." Ignoring them. That was the word she chose. Not recovering, not healing, not staying away from people who voted me out of their lives. Just ignoring. "I think that's mutual," I said. She sighed. "Can you just come over?" "We can fix this if you stop being so defensive." Defensive. Another word that always meant you're not agreeing with me fast enough. Still, some part of me, stupid, hopeful, agreed. I drove to her house the next day. The lights were on. The same holiday decorations still up. The same smell of cinnamon and vanilla candles in the air. It was like walking into a memory I no longer belonged to. Amanda was there, of course. Dylan, too. They were sitting in the living room like a jury waiting for the defendant to arrive. Mom motioned for me to sit. "We all just want to clear the air," she said. I sat, mostly because standing would have made me look like the problem. Amanda started first. "You can't keep blaming us for everything that goes wrong in your life." I blinked. I didn't, you blamed me. She scoffed. Oh, come on. You isolate yourself, you push people away, and then you cry victim when no one wants to deal with you. Dylan leaned forward. You didn't even wish Mom a happy birthday. I texted her. She said it felt cold. I stared at them both. The surreal part wasn't the accusations, it was how normal they sounded saying them. Like this was a performance they'd practiced. So that's what this is? I asked quietly. A post-holiday debrief? Mom's voice cracked. We just want peace in the family. Peace. The kind that comes when one person does all the apologizing. I reached into my bag and pulled out a printed copy of Amanda's post, the one from before Thanksgiving. I slid it across the coffee table. Her smile froze. Dylan shifted in his seat. Long overdue truth bombs, I said. That's what you called it. You had this planned. Amanda glanced at Mom, then back at me. You're being dramatic again? No, I said quietly. I'm being honest for once. I turned to my mother. Did you know about it? She didn't answer right away. Her fingers twisted the hem of her sweater. I thought it might help you see how people feel. How people feel. My voice cracked. You humiliated me. You let them vote me out like some family pet. Dylan laughed under his breath. There you go. Playing the martyr. Say that again, I said, standing up. He did. So I took the envelope from my coat pocket and tossed it onto the table. Bank statements. Loan records. The $10,000 I lent him. The late payments. The bounced checks. Amanda went pale. Dylan stopped smiling. I played the martyr? I said, no, I played the idiot. The one who kept thinking family meant something more than a word you people use when you need money or sympathy. Mom's voice rose. That's enough. Yeah, I said. It is. The silence that followed was sharp, jagged. You could almost hear the cracks spreading across the family facade. Amanda finally muttered, You're just proving why we can't deal with you. No, I said softly. I'm proving why I shouldn't try. I turned toward the door. Mom called after me. If you walk out again, don't bother coming back. I paused. The same line she used to control me when I was 15 and wanted to move in with Dad after their divorce. Only this time it didn't work. I wasn't planning to, I said, and walked out. When I got in the car, I could still see them through the window. Mom crying, Amanda scrolling on her phone, Dylan shaking his head like I was a headline instead of a human being. That's when it hit me. They weren't trying to fix anything. They were trying to win, and I wasn't playing anymore. But family wars don't end when you walk away. They just go quiet before the next attack. The days after that confrontation felt hollow, like living in a house after the fire's out. Everything's still standing, but the smell of smoke never leaves. I stopped checking my phone. Every buzz made my stomach twist. I told myself I didn't care, but silence from people who used to fill your world doesn't feel like peace. It feels like withdrawal. For the first time, the quiet wasn't something I wanted. It was something I had to survive. On the third day, my aunt messaged me. You really hurt your mother. She was trying to help. No, how are you? No, what happened? Just the same script they always used. My feelings were an inconvenience, their guilt my responsibility. I typed a reply and deleted it 3 times. Then I wrote, maybe she should stop helping people by breaking them. I didn't send it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every conversation, every text, every moment I said yes when I should have said no. The patterns were all there. The guilt tripping, the gaslighting, the shifting blame. It wasn't a family. It was a system, and I'd been its power source. The following weekend I went for a drive. No destination, just the need to move. The air was sharp, the kind that hurts your lungs in a good way. Somewhere between the quiet roads and fading sunlight I realized something strange. I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. Tired of explaining myself. Tired of being the villain in stories I didn't write. Tired of fighting people who'd already decided I was wrong. When I got home, there was a voicemail waiting. It was Mom. Her voice was softer this time, almost rehearsed. We just want to put this behind us. You don't have to make it so complicated. Amanda wants to send you your Christmas gift. Let's move on, okay? Move on. Those words did something to me. Moving on in her world meant pretending nothing happened. It meant erasing pain, skipping accountability, keeping the illusion alive. But I couldn't do that anymore. I didn't call back. Instead, I made a list, a stupid, simple list of boundaries. No more financial help. No answering guilt messages, no apologies for peace I didn't break. It felt ridiculous, writing rules to protect myself from my own family. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was rebuilding something that belonged to me. A few days later, Amanda texted, "So this is who you are now." Cold, distant. I stared at it for a long time before replying. "No, this is who I've always been. You just liked me better when I didn't say no." She didn't respond. Then came Dylan's message. Short, defensive, predictable. "You made Mom cry, congrats." I almost laughed. The irony of it, they could collectively humiliate me, exile me, strip me of family, and still, I was the problem because I didn't make it easy for them to pretend it was love. I muted every group chat, every relative, every shared thread. I didn't block them, not out of mercy but out of indifference. Blocking would have meant I still cared. That weekend, I cleaned my apartment. It sounds small, but when your life's been chaos, order feels like rebellion. I took down every family photo. The one of us smiling at the lake, the one where Dad grilled, Mom laughed, Amanda held her baby. I realized none of those moments were real. They were snapshots between storms. I replaced them with pictures from trips I'd taken alone. A sunrise, a bookstore, a quiet street in winter. Memories that didn't demand forgiveness to exist, and as I stood there, in a clean room filled with nothing but my own air, I understood something. You can't fix people who need you broken to feel whole. That realization didn't make me angry. It made me free. Still, freedom has its own silence. And sometimes that silence feels heavier than any argument ever did. Because even when you walk away, a small part of you still waits for someone to run after you, to say they didn't mean it, that you still matter. No one did. But sometimes closure doesn't come from them. It comes from finding out who you are without them. It's strange how peace doesn't arrive like a storm. It doesn't kick the door in or announce itself. It just shows up one morning, quiet and almost unrecognizable, like sunlight through dusty blinds. Months passed. Winter melted into spring. I learned how to fill the silence they left behind. I started running in the mornings, reading again, cooking meals that weren't just fuel. I took long drives with no destination, just music and open sky. It wasn't instant healing. It was slow, clumsy at first, like learning how to walk again without a crutch made of guilt. One afternoon, I was in a coffee shop near my apartment working on my laptop when I saw Amanda walk in. She froze when she noticed me. For a split second, I thought she'd turn around and leave, but she didn't. She walked over, hesitating like the floor might break under her. "Hey," she said, voice too light to be natural. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Same," I said. She nodded, looked around, then finally blurted, "Mom's not doing great." The words didn't sting the way they used to. They just sat there like a fact I no longer had to fix. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it. She looked at me, confused. "You're not mad?" I smiled a little. "I was. I'm just done carrying it." Amanda sat down. "We were just trying to get through to you, you know." I stared at her. "By voting me out of the family?" She looked away. It wasn't supposed to go like that. I could have asked her why. I could have reminded her of every message, every silence, every fake smile they'd thrown at me before cutting me out. But I didn't. Because in that moment I realized I didn't need her explanation anymore. People can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. And my family had never looked inward. They only knew how to project their pain outward. We sat in silence for a while. The kind that used to feel suffocating but now just was. When she finally stood up to leave, she said, "You know, it's not the same without you." I nodded. It's not supposed to be. That night I got home and opened my phone. Dozens of unread messages. Some from cousins, some from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, all circling the same topic. Mom wanted to talk. I typed a reply, then stopped. I realized I didn't owe anyone a performance of forgiveness just because they finally missed their favorite scapegoat. Instead, I called my therapist, told her I was ready to start working on what came next, not surviving family trauma, but living without it. She said, "That's not moving on. That's moving forward." And for the first time, those words made sense. A few weeks later, I went back to that same coffee shop. The barista smiled, handed me my usual, and asked if I wanted to add my name to the loyalty board. It was such a small thing, but I hesitated. For so long, belonging had meant obligation. Now it meant something else. Choice. I wrote my name down. Not my family name, just mine, and for the first time it felt enough. I don't know if I'll ever talk to them again. Maybe someday, maybe never. But I've stopped waiting for apologies that were never coming. Because the truth is, closure isn't something they can give me. It's something I had to take back for myself. Sometimes you think walking away means losing everything. But some doors need to close for you to finally see the open sky on the other side. And maybe that's the real gift of being voted out. You realize family isn't the people who share your last name. It's the people who let you exist without needing to break you first. Now, when people ask about my family, I tell them this. I used to think I lost them, but really, I just stopped mistaking pain for love. And every Thanksgiving since, when the world slows down and the smell of cinnamon fills the air again, I light a candle, just one. Not for what I lost, but for what I finally learned to keep. Sometimes losing your family isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your peace.